Hey everyone, Ashley Mailloux here with the Daily Racing Form. This weekend out at Pimlico, there's a ton of stakes action. The feature is the Grade 1 Preakness, but we're going to start with a different stakes race. Race number 4 on Saturday is the $100,000 Sir Barton at a mile and a 16th on the main track. We'll look at the field of 6 here that has been assembled, and looking at the names, the biggest name, arguably the number 4, Arabian Lion, who's been hyped since the very beginning of his career when he's able to score on debut, but he has had a pair of poor performances 2 and 3 starts back. He's 2-5 on the morning line. Number 3, Tappett's Conquest, another horse that is 4-1 on the morning line in here, was trying to get kind of qualified for the Derby. You can see it was in those 2 preps down at Louisiana, but didn't fare well. Then number 6, Dennington, also another name to note in this field of 6. And the others, they've all had starts in Maryland. So we'll start with the number 1, Masterwork. This one had the Caceres barn. We're going to look at that most recent performance where this horse was able to graduate in career start number 3. He's the 2 here. You can see it's his second start wearing blinkers. He's towards the outside of the horse that was on his inside, Dover Bluff. And he's able to kind of pull away here in authority. He was called upon, but he did open up nicely here in the stretch at Laurel back at the end of March. And for him, it's been interesting. This was his first race going over a mile. Prior to that, he had a 6 furlong effort, 7 furlongs. He did improve in his second start in terms of finish. He had a late rally, and it just seemed like he needed that late, kick in the distance. And he was more forwardly placed going a mile and a 16th. So he's an outsider in here, but he does come in here off a pretty nice maiden score. The number 2, Sheriff Ronnie, another outsider. This horse is a maiden. He's 0 for 6 in his career so far. He has 2 second place finishes and 2 third place finishes. He would certainly need to step up. His best effort was 2 back at the 7/8 distance. So he's also going to need to stretch out to a mile and a 16th and show more than he showed at that mile distance, that 1-turn mile at Churchill. The number 3, Tappett's Conquest. This one trained by Brad Cox, was 7th last out in Louisiana Derby. He didn't take a ton of respect in that race. He was 13-1. In terms of trips, he didn't show me much when I watched the replay and look at what the takeaways were. He did have some traffic in there, but I still would have liked to see more from him in the stretch. So personally, I wasn't a fan of the effort. I will admit, though, as I said, he did have trouble. The Risen Star ended up finishing 4th. He was 5-1 in that spot, and he was able to really make up some ground late. So it'll be interesting to see in terms of the pace scenario here if it'll be hot enough for him to make a late move. The number 4, Arabian Lion, I set him up. He's 2-5 on the morning line. The pressure is certainly on him. We'll take a look at his most recent performance in the Grade 3 Lexington at Keeneland back on April 15th. And you can see him with that blue shadow roll. Also want to point out another horse in here. Number 7 is Dennington in this field, but Arabian Lion had post 11. He was sharp out of the gate and forwardly placed, but the horse to his inside, First Mission, is really going to be able to battle back and grind it out. And Arabian Lion just didn't have that grit that his opponent had. And First Mission has earned him a spot. We'll see him later in the card this Saturday at Pimlico. I mentioned it kind of looking at the field. Arabian Lion has had good performances. He's been hyped. He's also had those 2 poor showings, at Loselle and at Santa Anita. But I thought the time off, he had just over 2 months off. He did look pretty good in the Lexington. I just think he faced a horse that's maybe just a touch better than he is. Short price, though, at 2-5. The number 5, Feeling Woozy. This one out of the Hammy Smith barn. Was 5th in the private terms. Prior to that, though, was 3rd in the Miracle Wood. Now, he is a 2-time winner in his career. His best performances, in my opinion, have been when he's been forwardly placed. Last time out, he was not as quick as some others in there. You look at 2 and 3 starts back. When he was in the race early on, he had his best chances. He was able to pick up that win and hang around for a minor share. He's a bit of an outsider in here, though, because looking at the way he's fared in stakes, he hasn't been able to kind of knock in the terms of the top 2 finishers in those each. And then rounding out the field, the number 6, Dennington, we saw him. He made up some ground late in the Lexington back on April 15th. He ended up finishing 4th. Arabian Lion, First Mission were just simply clear of the rest of the field. Prior to that, he did not show much in the Louisiana Derby. It seemed like the mile and 3/16 was maybe a distance limitation for him. So I think a mile and a 16th is probably where he belongs. He looked very good 3 starts back at the fairgrounds. And I'm hoping in terms of trip, he typically comes from off of it, but I wouldn't be surprised with this being a shorter field if he maybe splits this pack, kind of right in the middle early on. Flavien Prat's going to climb aboard for the first time. So compact field here in the Sir Barton of 6. And I say this all the time. I don't like short prices, but Arabian Lion, what he's been able to do so far, he looks to be the controlling speed in here. If he wants to be forwardly placed, he will be. I do think Feeling Woozy, maybe looking at some of those races at Laurel, could apply some pressure, but just looking at the buyer speed figures for Arabian Lion, when he's been good, his best kind of those races that we've seen so far would be certainly good enough to beat this bunch. From there, I go to the number 6, Dennington. I'm just curious. I think the rider change, I think a little bit of a more clever trip early on could set up for him, and maybe he'll be able to pick up a piece in here. The 3, Tappett's Conquest, I have a feeling he's going to go off as second choice. Just looking at Luis Saez, Brad Cox, the amount of respect they take. And for him, it's coming out of those 2 grade 2 preps down in Louisiana and then rounding it out. I mentioned the number 5, Feeling Woozy, maybe can be forwardly placed early on and hang around for a minor share. But for me, Arabian Lion looks extremely tough in Saturday's Sir Barton Stakes.